Good evening, everyone. We are vastly approaching one of my favorite segments of Com Week. I'm not sure if I'm even allowed to say favorite, but I'm a movie type of girl, so I'm always excited about this part because we get to see all of our skill sets showcased in cinema. And a good friend of mine, Dr. Tyrone Dixon, is on, and he will be leading this interview. If you are familiar with some of the faces that are on the screen, you know that Dr. Tyrone Dixon is one of our faculty members in the School of Communication, and he is also a screen producer, playwright. He's really a jack of all trades, all the above. He's last Com Week we did show Roll Bounce, right? And this year we wanted to try something different. So without further ado, I want to pass the mic to our own Dr. Dixon. And we also have renowned photographer, Mr. Earlie Hudnall, on with us as well. I had the pleasure of seeing some of his work downtown in Houston, actually on a postcard. Professor Randall and I were just, going downtown to get inspired for Com Week one year, and we saw his photography on a postcard, and we grabbed it and put it in our purse, and we kept it, and I'm glad we did. So glad to see that you've joined us, and I look forward to this segment. And as always, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat. Please make sure that you're following us on all social media platforms at TSU Com Week. And without further ado, Dr. Dixon, take us away.
You can go wrong pressing these buttons, too many buttons. Thank you, Professor Mitchell, for allowing me to participate. I hope that, we all had the opportunity, help me out now, that we've all had the opportunity to see the film for the Gordon Parks film, or are we showing it? I'm sorry, I'm a little bit.
We'll be showing it right after this.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about it now, and then we'll show the film.
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Professor Hudnall, thank you for being here. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
So I want to, and then we have some students on here. I see Cameron Lee. I see Professor Murray, Savannah Walker. All right, so there's a few people on. So I want to, I thought that is Vincent Powell going to join us? Is he here?
I'm monitoring the list and I don't see him yet.
Okay, great. Well, Mr. Hudnall, I want to first say, did you get a chance to watch the film? Did you get a chance to see the film yet?
No, I have not. I saw just the trailers.
Oh, wow.
I'm familiar with Gordon's work.
Well, let's start there because, I thought I was familiar with Gordon's work until I saw this documentary, which I thought was very, outstanding. I think the audience is going to love it. It is what you aspire to do as a filmmaker, documentarian. It's, it is what you want. And, for me watching the documentary and connecting with it, I couldn't help but think a lot about you. Because, I spent many years as a student and then, as a faculty member on, at TSU, watching you, do your thing. And prior to being a student, I was just a person in the community that had access, to your work, because you were out there doing this, doing your thing in a very similar way, as Gordon Parks. How did Gordon, inspire or encourage you to do what you do?
Well, I don't know if I was inspired by him. I was intrigued by looking at his images and the barriers he had to necessarily cross in order to accomplish the things that he was doing. And so I was inspired from that standpoint. But it was Mr. Herbert Provost who talked about Gordon Parks. Then I was able to meet Gordon Parks when he came to Houston. And then there was a young lady from Beaumont. Her first name was Rose. I'm trying to think of her last name. Her father was a dentist there in Beaumont. She went to study with Gordon Parks. Then I was able to meet Gordon Parks when he came to TSU and spoke at Texas Southern with Miss Louise Martin. Mr. Rodney Evans was there, and Mr. Carol Sims. As a matter of fact, I have pictures of them together here in the School of Education. And so looking at his photographs in Time magazine, I was inspired that way of looking at the images. But at that time, I never really thought about, I'm going to be a photographer, because there was that lull period between the time after high school, going to Vietnam, and then coming to Texas Southern. And the connection with Gordon didn't come up again really until Mr. Provost mentioned it. And he talked a lot about Gordon Parks. That was Herbert Provost.
Yes. I understand exactly what you're talking about. Now, I mean, when it comes down to, again, when I see Gordon Parks' work, obviously it's me as a filmmaker, I'm inspired. I want to do film. For me, it was Spike Lee, seeing that he could actually get it done, and seeing him a part of the documentary and having his thoughts on, Gordon's work. I think at the end of the day, what it was for me was that there was a connection, like you said. Every time I see you, I just saw you. I had a crew out there. Professor Vincent Powell and we had a crew out there covering the Barbara Jordan, the naming of the highway, and there you were.
Yeah.
And I've been seeing you there, in the, getting it in for a very long time. What keeps you moving? As a photographer, what keeps you moving in allowing yourself to be relevant in such a a world that is now dominant with the iPhone image?
Well, it's the being a country boy from Mississippi, you bring a certain kind of values with you, and you bring those values, and every day you try to more or less to capture images that reflects those values. And so what inspired me is the ability to tell a story with the camera. My grandmother was a storyteller. My father was an amateur photographer. And at an early age, I began to understand the importance of documenting one's community, who we are and what we do from day to day. And so that followed me after Vietnam when I came to Texas and came to Texas Southern. I came to study art, being an art major, and I began to make a few pictures on campus, meeting my good friend Ray Carrington, who was a yearbook editor in 1970. And so these are the kinds of things that have inspired me, and these are the values that I brought with me to Texas. I brought home with me, and I look for those images within the community. These are the kinds of things that I photograph, the same as Gordon Parks, being a poor boy who went to the city, bought his first camera, began to take pictures, and, and John, what was the program, the Farm Security Act at that time, and began to make pictures. This is how it all started.
I mean, I think that, man, I appreciate that so much, because the reality is when we think about how we move into the future, regardless of the technology, it really is about that ability to tell the story, right? Relevance is your ability to tell a story, and capturing a moment that spans many decades, many lifetimes, which is what a lot of your work does. I would like to ask you specifically, because this is what I teach, that there's a difference between a picture and a photograph. There's a difference between a movie and a film. And it really is about, the level of storytelling that is applied to that. Do you agree with that concept? And if so, or if not, how does that play into your choices of shooting black and white versus color?
Well, I feel that black and white versus color, people become immersed with color because it's beautiful. Black and white is a monochromatic, and it takes you to the heart of the subject as to exactly what you're doing. And that's what is important to me, is that subject once you connect. And when you make the picture, a lot of people like to use the word shoot, take, but you make an image, you make a picture. And this is what you do with the camera. People say, shoot, shoot, shoot. Well, I don't have the gun. So, but you have a camera. And as Gordon say, that's your choice of weapons. It allows you to really to invade, to come into a person space. It allows you an opportunity to capture something, and a picture tells a story. You can read a picture, and there's symbolism within there. And so it's up to the viewer, based upon his or her experience, to be able to dissect that and to understand what is going on.
Now, I have a couple other panel members that are going to join us, Mark Newsom and Vincent Powell, that are going to join us. But as you speak to that, how do you know you have that insight? We're talking about something that is very internal, right? A connectedness to what it is that you wanted to see and how you see it through the image, through the lens. What was it in you that said to you that the camera was going to be your weapon?
I guess it was instilled in me from a very early age, from high school, an experiment with the drugstore negative, watching my father take pictures of us on Sundays and most holidays, looking at my grandmother's album and understanding the importance of documenting one's community. The photograph of Jesse L. Brown, the first African-American Navy flyer who lived in my neighborhood, was shot down over Korea. And she had that newspaper article in her photo album, which I have in my possession now. Wow. Seeing and reading the article of Negro lynch in Poplarville, Mississippi, Minister Diggs the grave, reading that and understanding the importance of our community, what we should do and have to do in documenting it for future generation, as I was able to observe that. And then going to Vietnam, buying a small camera, the same as my father had, and began to make pictures in my spare time. I was a combat Marine, but I carried a little camera. And from time to time, when we had a break or whatever, I made a few photographs. And then coming to TSU and meeting Dr. Thomas L. Freeman, who was director of the Model Cities program, President Johnson Great Society, and beginning to work for the Model Cities. But it was also John Biggers in the art department, who had a full dark room over there for the art students to use, and no one was using it. One day coming down the hall, I said, Doc. He said, yeah, man. I said, I heard there's a dark room here in the building and I would like to use it. He reached in his pocket and said, show, man, and handed me the key. Said, straight through the printmaking room. Ran back across campus and got a guy named Nathaniel Sweet, who's a photographer major. And his father owned a newspaper in East St. Louis, Illinois. And he was taking a course with Mr. Evans. Mr. Evans was the university photographer at that particular time. He took all the pictures, the official photographs, and he taught photography. So all of that was my basic foundation. And then meeting Ray Carrington in 1970. Ray was yearbook editor, and he sent for me because he needed photographs for the yearbook to finish it. And I laid out the pictures, and he said, "Hey, man, this is exactly what I need. Black men are worth their weight in gold, something old and something new." And I was painting in Hannah Hall, my mural. That was a requirement for art students. And that mural is still on the wall, still incomplete due to the fact that they put the elevator shaft there. Dr. Freeman walked up to me one day and said, "Are you Earlie Hudnall?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Mr. Evans sent me to see you. I need a photographer. Will you come to my office and talk to me?" Yes, I did. And Tuesdays and Thursday night, we made photographs. During the week, we had to go out into the Houston community. And boom, I stumbled up, was sent to Fourth Ward. And lo and behold, Fourth Ward was alive and vibrant. There were streets that had bricks, that were clapperboard houses, there were duplex houses, big houses, and shotgun houses. And so people sitting on porches, activities going on, stores and different things. And I began to fall in love with that community and began to photograph. And this is how my career basically has blossomed along with the things I end up doing at TSU.
Amazing. And where can we find your work right now?
You can find my work at Photographs Do Not Bend in Dallas. That's a gallery that handles my work and sells it. You can find it at the MFA here in Houston. You can find it with the exhibit now that's in Arkansas called The Dirty South. You can find it at the Library of Congress. You can find it at the Smithsonian Institute. You can find it at the New Museum on the Mall. You can find it at the University of Texas, and you can find it at Hampton University. Hampton probably owns the largest volume of my work of any one institution in the country. I had an exhibit up there that John Biggers, my mentor, arranged in '96, and Hampton kept the whole entire show. They bought the whole show. And it's about 65 images that Hampton University owns at this time. And so there's numerous other, institutions that have stuff, the Chicago Art Institute, Studio Museum of Harlem, a couple of institutions in Europe and in London. And so I just have work all around. University of Texas at Dallas, and the Amos Carter's Museum in Fort Worth, to name a few.
I'm gonna allow that to be a great segue to bring in the other panel members.
Okay.
Mark Newsom, Vincent Powell, welcome to our panel, please.
It's great to be here.
It's good to see you, Mark.
Excellent to see you. I haven't seen you in a minute. All these beautiful people that I've come across throughout my life. It's an honor to be here on this panel with you all. I have a weird sense of humor, so I'm kind of stuck on the fact that I know that long list of brilliant places his work is shown, with just to name a few.
Yeah, but Mark, no, you are a great artist within your own right.
Appreciate
I remember
you,
working with you at TSU and your desire to be persistent. And that's what I admire about you. You learn and cut your teeth the way in which I did, along with Ray Carrington. And as you know, it's a lonely road that you have to travel by yourself in order to achieve, because repetitious, you have to do it over and over. And then one day it clicks. And then you begin to see and look at life differently. And then you begin to understand, and you begin to feel, you begin to smell, and you begin to really to go in and out and dissect and just enjoy what you see. And that's the thrill of life. And you have actually matured and began to make very, very important images.
I appreciate you, Hudnall.
I mean,
Not
I'm
only that,
We do, hey, we
Mark
do get a
also,
copy of this.
Mark also
I
is
want to listen, watch that every day, what just happened. That was so, I'm teary-eyed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
and I need to say, probably Mark is probably doing one of the most important documentaries that can be done, and that is on the life of Dr. Thomas F. Freeman. Mark has been documenting Dr. Freeman for over the last 10 years, and I feel that that's a very important segment because for more than all of my life since I've been in Houston, I've worked for Dr. Freeman. And if it had not been for him, I don't think that I might not be a photographer today because he supported us. He supported Ray Carrington, myself, and all of us, including Mark. And so for that reason, I have to give kudos to Mark for taking up the banner on his own to be sure to document as much as he can and have done about Dr. Freeman. Mhm. I think that's ultimately important.
Yes, I would agree with you, Doc. I mean, I've seen what Mark has done. I've known Mark a long time. He and I have kind of grown up together, as, artists in Houston and, really, plugging our way through, coming through Texas Southern University and just being, products of Third Ward and that community as a whole. So I agree with you 100%. I'm so proud of Mark and what he has done. And I look forward to, what's coming down the pipe. And that's staying true to what our theme is this season for Com Week, is how the digital media is affecting or participating in the climate of what it is that we do. I know that I'm a purist. I have a great love and appreciation for film. I want to touch it. I want to hold on to it. I would rather cut the film and splice it together if I'm editing. But the digital world has come along and changed how we do things. But it has not taken away the value of that very visceral, organic, space that I think that artists like to be. I would love to know, your thoughts about this, Mark. You being a hold on before I go further. Vincent, are you here? I see your name up. Or maybe we're having some. But I want to pose this question to you, Mark, because Mr. Hudnall has come through the whole process, right? He's seen it all. But for you and I, having access to seeing it all, but leaning more towards that new digital space, how is that affected and the choices that you make as an artist?
You're saying being in a digital space, how's that?
Yes. How has that affected, your choices as an artist now that we're living in this new digital world?
I think I'm naturally, I'm a natural fit for the digital world because you can change stuff. Like you can continually change and update and remix and that sort of thing with digital. Like with analog, you can do that as well, but it takes a lot more effort. And if you have to have the attention span for that. So digital actually works with the fact that I could change things on the fly. If I see another development come up, like I could adapt to that. I didn't do much analog photography. I did some when I was at TSU because I took a class. Was it his last name Crockett Hudnall? What was it?
Yeah, Thomas Crockett.
Thomas Crockett.
Uh-huh.
And actually, he inspired me because one of the first things he showed his students, it was like when I was at TSU when dinosaurs ruled the earth. And like I had, he showed us Hudnall's yearbook when he was like editor of the yearbook. And those some of the most brilliant pictures of any yearbook. Actually, just beautiful pictures. Life at TSU and pretty students and stuff like that. But it was like just all these really wonderful compositions, and it kind of blew my mind. And I always wanted to have that book, and it haunted me for like 20 years, maybe more, until a couple of years ago, somebody had an estate sale and they had two of them. I bought them both. I got them in the next room. No, you got to sign those.
Okay.
So going back to your question, I've enjoyed how digital kind of like has evolved, because there's things that I wish, in the early days of digital, there's things I wish digital could do, and now I can do it. So it works really well for me. Like, promoting with digital and doing different effects on digital and things that I could do in the Lightroom. So like, new effects, being able to edit a whole movie on a laptop, and actually, I also want to credit Dr. Freeman, who got me into the digital world unconsciously. He heard that I could draw when I was on the DSU debate team. So he was like, Dr. Freeman has no problem asking you of things. So, he was like, Mark, I hear you are a talented artist. Listen, I want you to come to my office and I want you to do a flyer for me. So I'll go to his office, and it's for his church, Mount Horeb Church.
Baptist
So I
church.
draw, he gives me a text he wants and that sort of thing. And I draw it and I hand do the text and do all this. And it came out really nice. Next time he asked me for something else, because once he sees you have a certain talent, he'll continue to request that talent of yours. So he asked me for something else, and it was pretty text heavy. So I went to the computer lab and I saw they had computers there, and I'd never drew on a computer before. And I taught myself how to draw on a computer and utilize the text there. And as a result, it got me into graphic design, and graphic design got me into composition, and composition got me back into, got me into filmmaking, video, because when I found out you can edit a whole movie on a laptop or a computer, I had Final Cut Pro in the early days and started shooting and, editing video. And that begot me getting back into photography, because I wanted to get better at composition. And then Instagram showed me that you could, do post-production on images. So that threw me back into filmmaking, and I could do better shots, really good composition, because I already had the composition eye. And the digital technology allowed me to, try new things all the time. If I want to do animation, I could do animation. If I want to add music, I could add music. All these things just kind of kept evolving, and it still evolves. So that being said, I'm a big friend of the digital world, because to me, it's all tools. It's just all evolution of tools. Like everything is storytelling. Everything is visual storytelling. If you take a concept and, you have more tools to utilize that concept and make it, even broader story. But it doesn't substitute, analog always still has a very special place because it looks, it's great. Analog is great. But I kind of roll with the times. And to me, the constant is just really great storytelling, great composition, and pulling at people's emotions when they look at your work.
I think, everything you just said, man, is amazing. You and I both have grown through, the process of art and having an opportunity to see, every generation, there's this new thing that's coming along. And I think that, it's interesting. And I look forward to you guys watching the documentary, because, speaking of weapons and you don't just, from what I got out of the documentary in relationship to Gordon Parks, and I want to ask you this, Mark, for me, it wasn't about having one weapon, that you had to have an arsenal of
Mhm.
that and what digital has allowed us to do is to be able to, you know, put more things in our arsenal. But it always seems to feel like we keep going back, right? I always talk about Marshall McLuhan and Four Laws of Media. You know, we look to enhance something, we're always obsolete, but we always have to retrieve something in order to enhance something. So it's interesting when I look at young people today, and they're driven to pick up the Polaroid camera, or they're now shooting, you know, 35 millimeter film cameras and to that effect. So, you know, I would like to know, you know, what has Gordon Parks done for you as an artist, looking back and moving forward into the future? What is it that you're looking to bring, you know, to a new generation of artists?
Well, you know, like Gordon Parks, like always inspired me. A, his look, and B, his photography looked like, you know, movies. And C, I was always compelled by is actually Gordon Parks struck me at a very early age because my grandmother gave me, you know, age 13, a copy of The Learning Tree, which was, I think it was his first novel. And that was the first Black centered book that I ever read. And it was very illustrative, and like, you know, it had sex scenes, it had, you know, coming of age and emotion and stuff like that. And my first exposure to emotion was like, you know, maybe Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn.
Mm-hmm.
So Gordon Parks definitely intrigued me, and you know, his look, the mustache, and all the stuff he photographed, and his films. He like has, I didn't know he had a Western until last year. Forgot what it's called, but it starred Max Julian. Is it Max Julian? The
Yeah.
Mac? Oh, yeah. And it's a good movie, you know, and like he was brilliant all the way around. And I've seen documentaries about him. Well, one that kind of, you know, showed me what kind of Renaissance man he was, you know, living in Europe and, you know, being exposed, you know, being a photographer at Life magazine at an early age, and all these life experiences that he had when Black people were kind of inhibited for having similar experiences. So he kind of thrived and had all these different, you know, beautiful women in his life, and kind of was amused to them as they were to him. And he was just a fascinating guy. So how he fuels me continuously was like his documentary work, like how he could do aesthetically chronicle things around you, like Hudnall does. You know, he inspired him. And like, and that's kind of my approach to photography, just even in Third Ward. Like, my whole thing was, how do you kind of immortalize these buildings that are getting bulldozed and that sort of thing, that were kind of vessels for all our collective memories for decades. And, you know, like, for example, my Frenchie's portraits, I call them Frenchie's portraits. That's my brand for that, you know, just a cool name, Frenchie's portraits. And I just took it upon myself to take different pictures of Frenchies. Like, nobody thought to do that, like in, let's see, 1969, like, you know, 50 or 60 years. Like, and I'm like, this is gone. Once it's gone, it's gonna be like the Astrodome. You're gonna be going down 610. I always wish, you know, this whole gap, flat land that used to be the source of wonder and joy, you know? So, yeah, so I would even like pick different times of the day, different nights. Like whenever it rained, I go in the middle of the night at 3 a.m. and see what's the cool picture I could take that has the light bouncing off the streets, the reflective light. So I have pictures of Frenchies looking like a scene from The Wire. I put a, you know, like a wide angle lens, and, you know, it's really cool. And then kept going. I kept, you know, did Cream Burger, you know,
For the
and
day it was torn down, we both was there.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Hudnall, like, you know, so whenever I see opportunity, bring Hudnall in, like when they were digging the you know, doing the groundbreaking at Frenchie's before they started building, I was like, Hudnall, you got to come over. You know, you guys document this. And so that was great. And that's kind of like been my approach. Like I have to preserve stuff that's around me because, you know, if it's going to be gone, it's going to be gone. You know, like it's just, he went, Dr. Freeman, he was a very colorful character. And I captured some interesting moments about him and recorded like, you know, like early debate members that were on the first and second team. And, you know, they're all gone now, but like I had that recorded. And I just kept recording him, not knowing how I would end that, you know, because it was always an interesting moment with him. Like he'd go by the office, debate team office, and if he's there, there's going to be something interesting to record. So I had a million tapes and a whole bunch of confusion on where I could go with this project until I saw Defiant Ones on HBO, you know, the Dr. Dre and is a Jimmy Levine video about, you know, their process of making music and their history. And they had all this old yucky looking footage and juxtaposed with newer footage. And it worked because it inspired me because I had all this old footage before I knew kind of like how to shoot. And I kind of thought like, maybe I needed to shoot the whole thing over because I'm a better shooter now. But after seeing Defiant Ones, it kind of worked. Like it showed me that that could work. Like the older footage looks cool. The newer footage looks cool with, you know, newer interviews. So what I did was I took people that were in my old footage and just kind of recorded them talking about the trips that they went on that I happened to record. And it actually works really well. And there's, so I ended it at his 100th birthday. And that was a great stopping point. And that's it. So now I'm kind of working on raising money to have some really great musicians do a soundtrack for it. And there's one interview I've been holding out on, and that's the guy that works for Joe Biden. He was in a lot of my old footage.
Come on, Marshall.
Marshall.
Yeah. So every time I say, yeah, man, next time I come to town, I'm gonna get that interview to you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was like, hey, I saw you were in town.
I still owe you one,
brother.
Yeah.
Let me know when you come back.
Well, that's awesome, Mark. I mean, this is a great opportunity to bring in Vincent Powell because he too of the three of you have had a great connection to Dr. Freeman. And when I watched the film, in which we'll all get an opportunity to do, to watch the documentary of Gordon Parks, I felt a lot of Freeman there, right? I felt a lot of that kind of aura and that energy. And you know, it was something special, and it makes you think about all of the other things that we you know, the stories that we are responsible for telling. And I really appreciate, you know, more than he will ever know, Mr. Hudnall, for being very consistent, because the woman who put a camera in my face was my Auntie Gwen, who her first ever opportunity of connecting with a camera was through you. Mm-hmm. You know, and so, you know, there's that connection. So, you know, I would love for Vincent Powell, who's one of our adjunct professors at TSU, graduate of USC's film school, is a great filmmaker, great photographer. He's actually teaching the photography course over in the School of Communication. And I would like to bring you in and talk a little bit about how you've moved along as an artist in relationship to connecting with Dr. Freeman, you know, Mr. Hudnall, having that TSU experience, and just really looking into the future, because you're somebody who I always connected with because you always had a hand on technology. You were always connected what was new, but you loved and appreciated, you know, the original stuff, right? You know,
Sure,
so connecting with that. So yeah, talk to us about that.
Yeah. First of all, to be on a panel with you all, I quickly must insert that I am the least of these. To have traveled the world with Mr. Hudnall, and to have also traveled with Mark is wild. To have sat under you, Professor Dixon, or Dr. Dixon, as a professor in undergrad is amazing, and for you to now be a peer and a colleague as I enter the world of higher education as an educator, I think is just serendipitous and full circle for me. And every day I get to turn onto the campus as an employee and as an empoweree, if you will. I'm overwhelmed by all of my experiences and opportunities that my life has afforded me because of interactions with the three of you. I've told Mark this to his face a number of times now. I'll continue to say it until I breathe my last breath. But when I was at TSU, Mark was in the marketing department, and I'd go over there because I knew of Mark through the debate team. And so my debate experience was HUD with a camera in his hand and Mark with one in his hand while I'm performing. And I always had this affinitous relationship with media, so I always would lean their way and look at what HUD is doing with the composition, look at what Mark is doing with his storytelling, and even when I'm in Africa without either one of them, I'm trying to continue to make sure I'm capturing moments on trips that were too long to bring them in, or where Mark has to go to China while I've got to go to Africa, or things like that. Mark said one thing while I stopped by his office one day, and Mark was one of the first Black guys that I knew who subscribed to digital juice and would get digital juice equipment, the green screens, the plugins, and all this stuff. And one day we were talking about the new Red MX1 and how dope it was and how fire it was, and it's expensive and it's amazing. And he said, "Hey Vince, talking about the tech is fun, but don't get too caught up in it." And I was like, "Oh man, don't rain on my parade, man. I know the specs, I know the stats, I know where to go in B&H to find it, you know." And he said, "Man, it's never the sword, it's always the swordsman." And that's been something that has stuck with me, and it's something that I teach my students, even before coming back to TSU, something I teach my crew. You can have all of the dope stuff, you can have all of the sweet gear, but if you don't do the due diligence to master the craft, a swordsman, a skilled swordsman, can do with a butter knife what the most amazing katana in the hand of the most amateur person cannot wield. And so I've made a career leaning into being a better swordsman, and not just being fascinated by the sword. And we can talk about the swords all day. We can talk about the Komodo and the Monstro, and we can talk about the 12K Ursa, and we can talk about what the R5 is doing. We can talk, I can go in about that stuff. But also we can talk composition, contrast ratio, frame, aspect ratio. We can sit down and talk codec and what we're doing with LUTs and why the image is going to do what the image is supposed to do and what story we're trying to tell. So before I say anything, it's a hats off and a thank you to Professor Dixon, to Mr. Hudnall, to Mark Newsom. I'm just grateful to be here with you fantastic, fine gentlemen. Being on the team, on the debate team with Dr. Freeman, B&H Photo is on campus tomorrow. I did see that. I saw it on the schedule. If y'all aren't keeping up with the schedule, make sure you see it. But being on the debate team was amazing. Seeing Dr. Freeman was also very intriguing, because I was like, oh my God, this guy taught Dr. King. He sculpted Barbara Jordan. He informed Mickey Leland, Jimmy Dixon, Yolanda Adams, so on and so forth. Denzel Washington, Journey Smollett, Denzel Whitaker, Nate Parker. It's
Earlie Hudnall, Vincent Powell, and Mark.
Yeah. But to names I didn't know at the time. I went to Dr. Freeman one day and I said, "Hey man, what was it like?" You know, you knock on the door. He says, "Come." You walk in, and it's just covered. It looks much like my office, except much more important documents sitting on his desk. And I said, Doc, I've been curious. What was it like teaching Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.? And he looks at me like, why did you waste my time with this question? I've been asked this before. He says, it wasn't much different than teaching you or anyone else. He was not Martin Luther King when I taught him. And I said, no, but I mean, come on, like you know, and he said, Vincent, I don't know what you become. And one day someone will enter my corridor excited that I may have interacted with you. And I will say to them what I said to you. He was only Vincent when I met him. And to this day, this is not a prop. I keep this on my desk. Oh, there it is. No, turn off the blur. No blur. There we go. I keep this photo of Dr. Freeman holding my son on my desk when he was able to meet my son a few years ago. I renamed my production company 7972 Films after his
Nice.
4 extensions.
7972.
That's it. So
Please leave a message.
listen, you can dial it right now, 713-313-7972 and still hear.
Well, really, the university should keep that.
They have to. They said they will.
Always, they should always keep that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping they will.
Yeah.
But I renamed my film company after it just because of how I just wanted to honor the opportunities I was given through Doc. And not just that, but the confidence that he gave me in, you don't have to be amazing to have impact. And you let other people tell that story. And no matter how creative and how off the wall you were to come back with as many trophies as you could, at the end of the day, he said the same thing to everybody. He said, let me commend you for your creativity. And I found myself having to realize that was enough. You don't get the certain pat on the back or the special rub on the head. From him, you got the same thing the next person got. Let me commend you for your creativity. And if that commendation from one person is not enough, and you're waiting on more people to laud praise on you and give you awards and more film festivals and more opportunities to prove to you who you know you are in your heart, you're searching for it in the wrong place. And so I live my life and create my craft and look at this guy every day for inspiration, because as long as I've made the decisions inside my heart and inside the well of my mind, the teams I work with, the opportunities I get, the places I go, the pay I receive, all of it can flash and go away. And if I'm not proud of the creativity I've rendered myself, I've robbed myself of everything.
I mean, that was so beautiful. Well said, Vincent. And it speaks to, I wish, having had an opportunity to see the film, and I just feel like there's a connection here that the film does exactly what we're doing right now. And it gives me pause to really, take a moment to really appreciate Earlie Hudnall, for all of the work that he has done. And because I see a huge correlation between Gordon Parks and Dr. Freeman. I see huge correlation between Gordon Parks and Earlie Hudnall, and that it continues to move forward with how I see you, Vincent, and how I see you, Mark, because we have a duty, we have a responsibility to be forthright and connected to our purpose. And it's rare when your passion and purpose collide, and I think that we all can share in that. And speaking to that, I want to give Mr. Hudnall an opportunity to talk about the value of yesterday, right? How is our future being connected to by our understanding of what we saw and understand from yesterday? I would like to see and hear from you in relationship to that, Doc.
Well, from a documentary standpoint of view, I think that the value of yesterday lies with a few people due to the fact that cell phones, videos, and those things was not as prominent as they are today. And from that standpoint of view, those valuable documents that we were able to capture at that time is being passed on to future generations. And I have to go back and make mention of one person within the community that is doing a very, very, very important job, and that is Ray Douglas Carrington, who's over at Jack Yates High School. Ray students, he start them out walking within the community, and they start out developing and actually printing their own images. Now they are doing strictly digital, but Ray has turned out a number of students that is at Sam Houston, University of Texas, down in Beaumont, in various places that is pursuing film as well as straight photography. And that basic give a student an insight from a very early age as to what to do and how to use it. And when a person see me sometime with a roll of film, they say, "What's that?" I said, "This is film." Film.
Yeah.
You know, and so you can talk to any student at Jack Yates that went through Ray Carrington's classes, and they know what film is. Ray's student had an opportunity to exhibit at the MFA for more than 18 solid straight years, high school student, documenting I Own Third Ward. That is so important that those images that is there for 18 years, think of 18 years of images of Third Ward by students who were able to take a camera home and to document who we are and what we do from day to day. Our hopes, our dream, and our desires. But the most important thing, he have them to write about it, write about the photographs. In most cases, when we go to the museum and we see a photograph, we have to identify with it based upon what we have experienced. Those students have to write about the experience when they made the photograph. And that is so important. And that is powerful along with the image. So once you look at how important photography is, bringing the past forward, and you look at those particular images, there is a message that's come along with it. We as individuals, when we look at a movie or we look at a photograph, we have to be able to feel. When we look at a photograph of people dancing, music comes to mind. Now, it can be any kind of music that you have experienced, but yet still there's that relationship that connects you. When you look at a movie and you look at the lighting, and when it comes out, you actually feel that. So these are the kind of things that the filmmaker, as well as the still photographer, brings forth. For me, I like to do it with film due to the fact that it's a slow, easy process, and I have a chance to relive it. What Mark and other people do with fast new technology, it kind of passes me by, and I don't have a chance to romance it. I can get in the dark room, I can control the tones, I can go back and I can alter it in such a way, and I get a chance to feel and smell the deck towel and the fix and all of that. And for me, it's a joy doing that.
Come on, Hud. Come on. Talk
wonderful.
about it like you love it, man.
But digital tends to create kind of a barrier, a plastic kind of a barrier between you and your subject. But yet and still, digital is very important. I've made some very beautiful pictures digital-wise, and it allows you to instantly see your results. When you shoot film, you have to know when you made the right image, and you have to go back and you have to develop it, and you have to trust your instinct. With digital, it happens and you wonder how it happened in most cases. for the average person who have not been trained. But yet and still, like Mr. Vincent Powell, who was on the debate team, and the images that I used to capture of the expressions and so forth and on, you have to feel that. When I see the things that Mark has done with Dr. Freeman and some of his documentary, you know, you have to be able, if you've had a relationship, you can actually feel and you can actually hear what was going on at that time.
Yeah.
And I think this is what the power of photography, and this is what it does. The same thing when you look at Gordon Parks' work. And I've always been pleasantly surprised when I look back and I see his earlier works that I have never seen before. And really it's coming forth. It's from his childhood. He brought these memories forward with him and he's exposing them to the world. And that has become his weapon.
Has become his weapon. That's a great, thank you so much. That is such a great segue into bringing on our next couple of guests. You know, we were kind of moving along at a nice pace, and Mr. Hudnall, that was excellent. I mean, I like how you said I get a chance to romance it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to write that one on my wall, because that's exactly what it feels like. Because and for me, that's what makes it art.
Yeah, where you live it over and over again.
Yes.
You know, you make the picture, then you go to the dark room, you develop the film.
Yes.
And then there's another joy. And then when you go to the enlarger and you enlarge it and it comes up in the developer, that's another joy.
Yes.
So it's 3 times.
Yeah. It's the same way in making film, right? You know, we develop it, we shoot it, and then we're in post-production. Each
and like
of those
you say,
spaces,
cutting it.
yes, we're telling story all along the way. That's it. So we have Cameron Lee and Charity Johnson Hamilton. Cameron Lee and Charity, are you there? You guys on? They're like, oh, we've been waiting all this time. But the reason why I want to bring them in is because it's also our student showcase, film showcase tonight. We're going to, you know, show the Gordon Parks film, and then we're going to show a couple of student films. And Cameron Lee and Charity Johnson Hamilton did a project called Unspoken Casualties in undergrad. And Cameron Lee is now part of our graduate program and now works at, I think he works for ABC. But they did a wonderful job with the documentary. Professor Doris Childress was really connected with them in the process of getting the film done. And we're going to watch that film tonight as well. But I wanted to give Cameron and Charity an opportunity to talk about their experience and relationship to some of the things that we've been talking about on the call so far. Cameron, are you there? Charity, are you there?
They're here. I just asked them to start their video.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Cameron Lee, how you doing, young man? I can't hear you. He's a super techie one.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. It's so funny because, you know, as a professor, and I've been there for a minute, you know, when one student leaves, like a Vincent Powell, you're always thinking like, dang it, Vincent is leaving. Who's going to come around? And then there's always somebody that comes around. And Cameron Lee, you were one of those individuals that came around right out of high school, ready to run and rock and roll. And you're continuing to do that. I wanted to give you this opportunity, you and Charity, to talk about your experience with your documentary and making a connection to some of the things that we've been talking about today as it relates to, you know, past and future, technology, and just, you know, the essence of storytelling overall.
Sure. Well, actually, Charity's right here with me.
Oh, that's the okay. Hi, Charity. Excellent, excellent. I mean, we've been talking to Mr. Hudnall and Vincent Powell and Mark Newsom, who we know all are very, very, respected artists, all coming through TSU, all having this connectedness to, everything that Dr. Freeman was all about. And for me, that's a great connection to what I believe, globally, Gordon Parks has done, for a lot of filmmakers, for a lot of photographers, for a lot of folk who've decided that they're going to choose the camera as their weapon to tell story. You guys decided to do the same thing. So I would like to know more about, what your documentary is about and what possessed you to get it done.
Sure. So our documentary is called Unspoken Casualties, The Heartbreak of the Pandemic. So it's a short documentary that goes in depth about suicide and how it's been affecting everybody during the pandemic once it started, and how it's continued to be pretty much like one of the top leading causes of death in society today. So we wanted to tackle it because we realized that not a single filmmaker or not a single producer anywhere has made a film about suicide, and that's a big topic that nobody ever wants to talk about. But we decided that we should go ahead and pretty much make it an uncomfortable topic to talk about and get everybody involved and get involved into the conversation.
We also wanted to include personal aspects. That's another reason why we decided to create this documentary. I'm personally discussing my experience that I had with attempting suicide and going through depression and everything. And we basically wanted to explore that and give people, the opportunity to understand that there are better ways to deal with the pandemic besides trying to end your life and everything because it's not going as planned, if that makes sense.
That makes plenty sense.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, for me as someone that, I'm a human being. I've had my bouts with depression and those types of thoughts, and I'm a psychologist, I'm a parent, I'm a bunch of things. So I really do get that. And when you decide to pick up the camera and make it a weapon, it is also that weapon that protects you, person that like you said, you wanted to tell your story. You wanted to, it was cathartic for you to be able to do that. And I think that that's what we do as artists when we pick up a camera or we pick up our pen and we share it, with the world, is that we are sharing a piece of us, right? And that, depending on how much of you that you share, I believe determines how much other people connect with it. And you guys have won, tell us a little bit about the success that your project has had.
Sure. So far, we have been selected for about 14, going on 15 film festivals. One being the Ottawa Black Film Festival that's happening tomorrow, and we're technically still on the road around the world, being selected and winning awards. So we've been pretty much getting our message out, and then there's still people that are trying to reach us and trying to ask if we would like to participate in their festivals and kind of join in or kind of engage the conversation, engage their viewers with the conversation about what we discussed. So
I think that's awesome. I mean, because the thing that I think that we've all been saying is that whether you're documenting with a camera that shoots the moving image, or you're documenting with a camera that shoots the still image, you're participating in what we call, for me, Black digital humanities, because you're giving us an opportunity to be able to preserve, but as well, get a greater understanding of how one might perceive or what the optics look like for the future as it relates to the art that we're creating. So a lot of Gordon Parks images are still important today, right? And they still speak to us the same way they did 30, 40 years ago. Same thing with Professor Hudnall. I mean, I think the work that he does, is going to speak for generations and generations and generations. So no matter how old an image is, it's relative to the future because it's human. We're people, right? How much are we going to change? And have the opportunity to connect with that and to be able to connect with others in that way by choosing a tool like a camera, I think is very powerful. And to choose the subject that you guys chose, while in college, undergrad, I thought was very, very profound and bold and risky. And I think that that's what you have to do. And I think Mr. Hudnall will agree. And Professor Newsom would, Mark would agree, Vincent Powell would agree that, taking those risks is what really it's all about, right? Because that's exactly what Dr. Freeman did, that's what Gordon Parks did. They took risk. And I'm so proud of you for doing what you did. And I just want to, because this came up in the chat section, hey audience, stay tuned for the screening of A Choice of Weapons inspired by Gordon Parks, Unspoken Casualties from Cameron Lee and Charity Johnson Hamilton, and No Church in the Wild from Ryan Aubrey and Cameron Gibson. Both Ryan Aubrey and Cameron Gibson are out here in Los Angeles with me. They're graduates of the School of Communication. They too have, this thirst for putting their voices out there and making themselves heard. I'm very proud of the both of them because they've found themselves jobs working in studios and working in the corporate sector and really looking to create opportunities for other people. And I believe that this is what this is all about, right? Is when we see the lineage, how it all comes down. I love this, and I don't want to keep going on, but I love that Mr. Hudnall and Vincent Powell and Mark Newsom and I, all four of us, had a relationship that for me made this conversation, this discussion really powerful, because I didn't understand our connection. I knew that we had a connection, but it was great to see that connection now. And as well, Cameron, that you have that connection to Professor Hudnall and Vincent Powell and Mark Newsom, because, in TSU and the Third Ward community, we're a thriving community, and we look out for one another and we connect with one another. And that's one of the reasons why I love Professor Hudnall so much, because Monty Gwen Gallion, and you go through your Rolodex, Gwen Gallion, she spoke highly of you, and she's a person who's loved photography all her life. And when I was 5 years old, she was the first person to put a Polaroid camera in my hand, a still camera in my hand, a video camera in my hand, and made it important to, document our family. And she got it from you, Mr. Hudnall. Okay. And I want to say thank you, because if she didn't get it, then I wouldn't have got it. So I got it, and I've been able to connect with people like, Mark and Vincent and Cameron and all the other faculty that we have. And I believe that we're well on our way to continue to create, awesome work in the future. And I mean, this has been awesome. Nobody has anything else to say. No, was that a drop the mic moment? I'll just get up and walk away now. but I know we're going to get into watching the films. So for our curators, are you there? Are we on time, or where are we?
Here I am. I'm getting it for us. Let's start off with a choice of weapons. Then we'll go to our student films, if that's okay with our students. Okay.
And then after the films, we'll come back and we'll talk about them.
Actually, let's do a wrap up. Because that would take us to how many hours?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So no worries. So as we go into watching the films, I would like to give our panelists an opportunity to give our audience, one last word of encouragement or inspiration.
Well, I think that it's important for everyone that has an idea, whether it's still, whether it's film, from your own creativity, to use the tools that you have around you, whether it's a still camera or whether it's an idea that you have that you can get with Cameron Lee, Mark Newsom, a Tyrone Dixon, or an Earlie Hudnall, or Ray Douglas Carrington, and really talk about projects. I think we have to start to interreacting, and we have to kind of meet together from time to time and exchange ideas, due to the fact that I think that the projects that we choose or the roads that we choose is a very lonely one. It's an idea that you have. And it's not all about making a dollar or making a buck. It's about having an instinct on something that you feel that is important to you. I think all of the panelists will remember Dr. Freeman and John Biggers, who was adamant about the murals in Hannah Hall, and Dr. Freeman that have had in the past programs. If there was only one person sitting in the audience, the program would on as scheduled. And I think that is a testament that we as individuals, as filmmakers and photographers, we have to pursue your dreams, you have to pursue your ideas, and you have to be brave enough to put it out there and let the viewer come to his or her own conclusion as to what you do and how they look at it. Because once you put it out there, it's there.
I love that. You have to be brave enough. And I think that that is, that's definitely something to walk away with, that I would definitely connect with Gordon Parks, bravery, that comes with the art that we've chosen. Mark.
Closing words. I'd like to add to everybody listening, if you kind of...
Sure. I'm having trouble connecting to the internet.
Uh-oh.
Don't have a robot in your room. Be quiet. What are they called? Alexis, be quiet. Alexis, shut up. I'm gonna unplug that
Technology, huh, Mark?
Hey, listen, I inherited that. But what I wanted to say is, as you embark on your journey and have these, all these learning experiences on your road of being a trailblazer, of presenting your story, think in terms of what knowledge, what wisdom that you could share to the next person that's green in that area or has not done it. So I imbibed everyone who taught me, and I took that information and learned from it and came up with my own experiences, and I taught somebody else. And even till this day, I forgot to mention earlier, I actually teach at Rice. I teach a video activism class. And a lot of the things that I'm teaching the students is, as they make their activist videos, experiences of all my failures, of overthinking, of taking too long, or thinking it has to be perfect before I show people. I get that out of their minds early on. and I have these different rules, different philosophies. And my main one is done is better than perfect.
I always say progress over perfection.
I'm gonna use that too. You can take mine. So that's what I like to share. Like, consider yourself a vessel of knowledge, consider yourself a vessel of experience, and share your knowledge, share your wisdom, make the people around you better than how you left them, how you encountered them, make them better how you left them than how you encountered them to begin with.
Exactly. I feel you on that. I feel you on that, Mark. Vincent. Vincent got like 2 kids over there, so they very, he might be running around chasing.
Maybe cooking dinner for his family right now.
But I think the takeaway here is taking risk and being brave and understanding our value, and telling the stories that we love, that we know are important to us. And like you said, Mark, it's about getting the story out there. It's not about making it perfect. I always tell my students that I don't care what filmmaker you think of, whatever film that they've made, it is less than 80% of what they thought it was going to be, because it just takes so much to get to 100%, and that's great, right? Because it's a subjective space, and you're working with so many people, studios, talent, and all of these various things. And one of the things I love about a camera, the still photography camera, is that I alone can take that camera out and tackle a story and tackle a moment without having all of the other fanfare or needing all the other money. And that's what I love about what Mr. Hudnall has done and what you've done, Mark, and being focused, like you said, doing all these photographs on Frenchies. That was brilliant. And that just reminded me of what we're talking about today when we talk about the digital space and all of that. It really is about vision. The word should be vision, not digital, right? Because it really is about, do you have the vision to capture something, to have a connectedness to something so much that you feel like capturing this moment is gonna, whether it's gonna explode or not, you feel a connectedness to take that photograph, right? You don't know that photograph is gonna become something that changes the world, but you felt it. That's why you snapped the photograph, right? And so, but that comes with vision. And I think that, one of the things I want to leave our audience with is this concept of connecting with your imagination, and allowing your imagination to fuel your vision, and connecting that to what it is that you know. And the last thing I'm going to say before we leave is Dr. Poudet is on, and he wrote in the chat section that he really appreciated your comments, Mr. Hudnall, about film, because he's a purist just like me, and I guess I'm a lot, I get a lot of that from Dr. Poudet, who was the guy that really led me and pushed me in the direction, who gave me the opportunity to take the camera out and do the things that I wanted to do with the camera, and really explore my voice. And I think that is the goal, is to use that weapon to get your voice out there, and not allow anybody to taint what it is your voice is wanting to say, right? Mark, you were talking about, I watched this project and I saw that they used the old with the new. Yes, that's where we are, right? Because people are so, from my perspective, very retrospective today. We're nostalgic today. That's why documentaries are doing so much better than, we ever thought they would, right? And so when you watch the documentary tonight about Gordon Parks, you will see exactly what it is that you're doing, Mark. And Vincent, you will see exactly what it is that we're going to be doing with the Barbara Jordan documentary. Having said all of that, let's move into watching these wonderful films. I want to thank Charity and Cameron for joining us. I want to again say how proud I am of you for being bold and risky and trusting your understanding of your tools to get story told. And I believe you guys are going to do very well. And Mr. Hudnall, I'll see you soon, my brother, and keep doing what you're doing. And Mark, hey brother, just yesterday I walk around, I took a photograph of myself. I live in a place called Eagle Rock in LA, and I walk around with that. People ask me all the time when I wear that t-shirt, I love Third Ward. They want to know what it is. And I love creating the conversation, because you know what happens is I'm sitting there talking to them for 30 minutes about Third Ward, talking about, oh, Debbie Allen, Felicia Rashad, yeah, you go on and on and on, Bob Joy, Vicky Leland, that shirt, that image, that art speaks globally. And I want to thank you for putting that out there. And I want to thank, before we leave, Professor Mitchell and Professor Randall, Professor Sanford Walker, Professor Murray, for making sure that we're able to pull this type of thing off. And this is what we're doing. We're participating in Black Digital Humanities, recording this, having this event in the way that we're doing it. We have to do both, right? It's good to do in person and the virtual space, right, Doc? Because that's what it's all about.
This is exclusive.
Go! Nothing can stop me. I'm all the way